Billings Logan Airport, and a cloudy day with rain and all sorts of other stuff. We're heading on over to Gate Bravo 2 right now, where the FlyJ Sim Q400 is waiting for us today. Probably wondering why it is that I wanted to talk about the Q400. Somebody suggested that we do a Q flight over on the Twitch live stream, and it has been a couple of months, I think, since I've last flown this airplane, and so I really need to figure out, how does this thing work again? Hi, I'm Dave. I do the spy flight over on Twitch. Thank you for coming by. This is a complete flight. So if you would like to do a little bit of flying along with me, stop the video, load up your Q400 or any other airplane, and join me on the flight right now. This is sort of a cold and dark flight, but also just for fun. Let's try and remember how to fly this airplane type of a deal. And let's talk a little bit about the flight today. We're going to be flying as Alaska Horizon QXE flight 2555. This is regular service from Billings Logan Airport to Seattle Tacoma. Add-ons that I'm using is FlightAware, Navigraph, Charts and Data, Sim Toolkit Pro, metartaf.com, and I'm also using ActiveSky on this flight too. Before we take off, this is a small airplane, but it's still pretty complex. There are a few rabbit holes to jump down here. The best part about this airplane, though, is the electronic flight bag checklists. This is going to probably be what saves me on this airplane, because it's going to remind me of all the things that you've got to do. Hopefully, I just go in the right direction. Again, the videos that I do here are not necessarily all about the right way versus the wrong way and all that other drama. This is just what works for me, and hopefully it's a way that you get to have fun with these amazing airplanes too. So if you've never done one of these, the thing to do is fly along with me. Stop the video, load up your sim, and fly along. Pause and restart the video. That's the cool part about YouTube. You can even rewind it if you missed me doing something along those lines. And then one of the things I like to suggest is do a flight out of your own hometown airport. Take off from an airport with landmarks that you recognize. That just kind of helps you figure stuff out. Our flight today is the Q400. We're flying on over to Seattle. This is a 2-hour and 16-minute flight, going a whole 606 miles on this one. As far as weather's concerned, there's a little weather system out there. Mostly it's just low pressure, and we start each morning this time of the year, you know, with clouds and a couple of scattered showers. Here's our flight data today. We're taking off of runway 28 right off of Billings Logan, and a couple of checkpoints into the Glazer 1 arrival into Seattle via Mullen Pass. We're going to be landing on runway 16 center right now. These runways, by the way, are what they are doing in the real world. We've got real world weather cranked in. Now, the runways may be different for you. If the weather's different when you're flying this is not live for you. This is recorded, so you may be taking off to the east and landing to the north, the complete opposite. It just depends on your weather. Flight time today, again, 206 minutes or so. So let's head on out to the airplane, and there it is. One of the things about these airplanes is they don't play fairly nicely with the auto gate plug-in here. So when you always spawn at an airport, even if there's a gate, the gate is always going to retract for some reason. No big deal, though, because the airplane itself does have stairs. And by the way, these stairs, if you really want to get immersive and stuff, these stairs, you can open and close the doors from the outside. So if that's something that you'd like to do, you can actually do that. And this airplane is really, really nicely modeled. So let's see, we can kind of come up here, and you can kind of walk inside. If you haven't walked inside an airplane in a while, like I haven't, you know, you can get incredibly geeky. And there is our very nice cabin. And there's the flight deck. Oh, look at that. The flight deck door is open. By the way, if you've probably heard the joke that we do over on the Twitch live stream, this is the airplane where the developer actually modeled the toilet flushing. So there you go. Be sure, don't trip on the step. You actually have to step up. And you know, when you come on in, this cockpit looks like it's rather spacious, but I've got to tell you, it's really not all that spacious up here. CRJs and these Q400s, it looks big. If you're a normal-sized human being, it's not too small, but it's definitely not big either. So the airplane is currently off right now. So this is cold and dark. So the first thing that I like to do is go here and jump into the electronic flight bag. One of the things that's really neat about what FlyJSim did with this airplane is when you load it up, it tells you what the current version of the airplane is and says, hey, you've got the latest version. I got to tell you, that's wow. Thank you. Very, very nice. I appreciate that. I'm going to go in here and just make sure that I'm set to inches of mercury and kilograms, and everything else is pretty good there. Here is our checklists. We're going to use those in a second, but first things first, one of the things we need to do is we need to connect the ground power unit. And so the ground power unit should be firing up outside. You can hear the ground power unit out there. Let's see. The other thing we can do is it says call pushback once loaded. This is kind of a cool little thing. When the airplane is loaded, it automatically calls your pushback truck. The thing is, you need to preset it up now. So let's do that right now. So we're going to go over here and go to plugins and better pushback. And we're going to go ahead and pre-plan. So all we're going to do is we're just going to push straight back here. In fact, that's really about all we need to do is push back like this and hit enter.
Ground to cockpit, plan acknowledged. Call me through the menu when you are ready.
Okay, now we no longer have to worry about that. So here's our airplane. Let's figure out what the load is going to be. So select load. Now come on over here. There's a lot of numbers to fill in here. I fill in only 2. And the first thing I do is I go to my flight plan and I figure out what my zero fuel weight is. I've already gone to my flight plan, and these are my flight notes. You probably recognize this from the description. You can copy and paste this into Notepad of your own and then adapt this. This is how I keep track of notes on big VAT sim flights like Cross the Pond and everything. It's got everything I need right here, and I'm not killing a bunch of trees because I was really printing up a lot of stuff with flight plans in the old days. 24,621 kgs. That is going to be our weight. So come on in here and go, just put the number in, 24,621 and enter. Okay, so there you go. What's our fuel? 3,781. So total fuel, 3,781. Enter. Now, the one thing I'll do is I'll go and make sure after I've entered these things, are these 2 numbers correct? Once I've done that, I feel pretty good that we're going to be okay. Also, you can make sure that kgs and pounds are shifted, and that's all you got to do. It's already preset. We're going to have 71 passengers. Our cargo is going to be 1.1 kgs of cargo. All of that's done. So let's go to the load summary. And now it's going to probably need us to add a little more information, like the temperature. Our sea level temperature here in Billings right now is 14 degrees. So we're going to change 14 and enter. And then the only other thing you need to do is put in your time en route or your distance. And so our distance for today's flight is 606. So 606 and enter. And it's done. Everything else, you can fill out other stuff, but you don't need to. All of that is good to go. There's our 71 passengers. Our total cargo is done. We're going to confirm the load, and let's start loading. So the first thing that this thing's going to do is, if you want to go outside the airplane, you come out back by the right engine here and look down here, and in just a second or two, did you see that? The fuel cart has shown up. There's our fuel cart. And there's going to be a hose that's going to pop out and plug into the ground. You see that? There's a little thing in the ground. There's going to be a hose that appears there. Okay, come on, hose. Don't make me a liar. Come on, hose. There, see, there's the hose. And then eventually you're going to see over here by the engine, you'll see a little step stool that pops up. And the gas filler is right here. So there's a little cone, and then there's the step stool, and then the gas filler hatch is right open here. And so you'll see all of those things modeled. They did a wonderful job of modeling. There's our step stool. And so then this thing's going to open. And come on. Open. 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 See, it makes me wait like this. The FlyJSim people, there we go. See, then they open it up. Oh, and by the way, they've modeled it so well. If you kind of come up here and then look up underneath here, you can see how they modeled the stuff here. And let's see if I could zoom in just a little bit. Yeah, so they modeled the controls. up here too. We're pumping in the gas. All right, we're pumping in the gas. Okay, there's enough of that geeky stuff. Isn't that cool? This is such a great little airplane. All right, so let's go on over here. And now that that's done, we're going to go to checklists. And before start, we need to go here and do the initial power up. And the initial power up, we're going to do the battery master. Let's turn on the main battery, the auxiliary battery, and the standby battery. We definitely get a charge out of turning on the batteries, and there's your bad joke for the flight. External power is plugged in, so we're going to pop that in too. We're going to come over here, and there is a recirculating fan. In case the co-pilot went to Taco Bell, you got to have that recirculating fan turn on. Very, very important safety tip. Let's also go here, and we're going to turn on the position lights. So position lights are all on, and that's good for the moment. If you want, if it's dark outside, you can also turn up all of the instrument lighting up here. Turn that all the way up, and that helps out a bit. And the airplane is slowly coming to life. Next thing to do is kind of look down here, and you see there's a couple of knobs here. And see these two knobs right here? Let's go back here and just take it and put your point clicker over it and use the mouse wheel and turn it all the way up. And you see we turned on that monitor. You got to turn on this monitor too. And look down here, you see this knob? That turns on the center monitor. So all of those go on. Now I can't really grab the other ones, so you kind of have to come over here and just slide over here, and we're going to turn on the co-pilots too. So just take these knobs, turn them all the way up. And now here comes our I think they're LCDs. They're not LEDs, they're LCDs. So they've updated those and made those kind of nice. But there's all sorts of flashing around and stuff as it does its tests. So that's looking pretty good. We're going to go here and let's go and turn off the caution and the warning there. And the airplane's slowly coming to life. Let's go ahead and turn on the universals. And so on. And you hit the on button and it takes a second. Let's also go over here. These are the very old school FMCs. And I think I've heard other pilots call them the universals because it says universal up there. And then we could also come down here and we're going to turn on both and both. There's our radios. We'll get those popped in there as well. Okay, so airplanes coming to life very, very nicely here. There's our initial power up. So we'll go over here. Recirculating fan is on. We sort of did our external check. That's good. Alternate gear doors and landing gear inhibit switch. Okay, so I spent a whole lot of time trying to figure this out. If you look up here, it's above the co-pilot. Landing gear alternate. So that's it. That's where you would check that if you're trying to figure that out. So that's where that is. Flight deck preparation. Let's check it off anyway. And the briefing is completed. We still have some prep to do. But we're good to go there and before start checks. So now let's go ahead and you can see the universals are popped up. And check your date and check your time. And those should be accurate. And we'll also do the one for the co-pilot. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now then, let's go and do, and this is where I'm going to have a hard time remembering. I think we do flight plan next, I believe. Yeah, I think it's flight plan. So we're going to blast off from Billings Logan Airport. And so over here, we go to list. No, you actually have to click it first. And then we can go to list. Let's see. No, I don't think we want list on this one. I think we have to do the runway on this maybe. See, this is it's got a performance. No, we don't want that. We're over in flight plan. So Billings. Let's put in the rest of the flight plan and see what we get here. So click this one and see if I can remember stuff. So our first stop is the Billings VOR, BIL, and hit enter. And that's the Billings VOR. We'll accept it. After Billings, we're going to Armity, ARMTY, ARMTY. I didn't spell it out like that for you. Okay. ARMTY. Enter. I didn't spell it out for you, okay? A lot of the checkpoints and stuff like that have really, really interesting spellings. So one of the things that I like to do is I will look at the flight plan and say the next checkpoint is ASHU, ASHUW. And then I'll say it again, ASHUW. S-H-U-W. That's kind of how it is that I remember what it is that I'm supposed to be typing in. After ASHU, it's the HLN, Helena VOR. So HLN, enter, and it should say Helena. Looks good. After Helena, we're going to Mullen Pass, MLP. MLP, Mullen Pass, and that's good. And that's great. Now then, the next spot is Seattle. So no, not SEA. Back, KSEA, it's the airport. SEA. And enter. And SeaTac, looks good. All right. Now then, all of that looks good. Let's come over to Seattle. And now this one, we definitely want to go and do the list thing. And let's see here. What are we going to be doing? Maybe this is not right. I've totally forgotten what I'm doing here. Let's go back to flight plan. Let's see what menu does. Ah, that's right. It's menu. This is how we put in our departure and arrivals. See why it's a good thing to do a refresher flight every now and then? We're departing off of runway 28 right. That's number 6. So put in number 6. There's no SIDS going out of here. So there's that. Go back to the flight plan, and there's Billings. It says no link. All I usually do is go and click the no link and delete it and say, yeah, I'm sure. Okay, next. Now let's do Seattle. And menu and arrival. See, helps to remember stuff. We're coming into runway 16 center. 16 center. I think they're done fueling and their passengers are going to start coming aboard here. So runway 16 center, that is number 1. Okay, we're doing the Glazer. That is arrival number 2. Via Mullen Pass, which is number 3. We're going to do the ILS, number 1. And I usually choose Erica. It's shorter. And there is the flight plan. So Billings to Billings, Armady, ASHU. Sounds like somebody sneezing. Helena, next. Mullen Pass, Spokane, Temple, Whitrow, Odall, Glazer, Jackson, Woody. Chances are at Heather, we'll blow this off. Let's go and get rid of the link. And then Vectors to Erica, then Magnum. And there we go. And there is Missed Approach. All of that's good. I think we have a flight plan. How about that? And all of this is starting to look pretty good here. Passengers should be getting aboard at the moment. Yep, passengers are coming aboard. Let's go ahead and start the APU. So generally I'm told that the APU on this airplane is kind of weak. It's not the best of APUs, so you'll still leave ground power plugged in. And let's see if we hear the APU starting. Ah, there goes the APU. I think a lot of airlines turn on the APU before they start letting the passengers on board. All right, so that's looking good. What we need to do now is look at our charts and see what is the landing altitude at Seattle. Seattle is 432. That's the landing altitude there. But what we also need is cabin altitude. That looks good. And here's where we put in landing altitude, which is 400 feet. So there is 1,000 feet right there. So 400 feet, I guess that means that's going to be, there's 500 right there. So there's 400 feet. Okay, that looks good. All right, so everything's coming pretty good here. Looking back in the cabin, you can see the passengers. The airplane is loading, although a lot of sims do not simulate passengers and stuff. But the airplane is going to be loaded as if there's 71 people. So we're going to walk all the way at the back because this airplane, there's a little thing you kind of need to do for good luck. You walk all the way to the back of the airplane. I mean, here the APU is up back here. That's kind of cool. There's the door open there. Let's go and and open the back. And if we look in there, there's a little toy. So click it and then be sure and close it. And then come back up front. And if you look, it's on the dashboard here. So now we have our little FlyJ Sim plushie. And so I kind of like to say, hey, let's just put that up there for good luck. Because, boy, I'm going to need it on this one. All right, looking up here, everything's looking pretty good. The APU is up and running. We've got a little bit of bleed going on off the APU, and there's a little bit of warmth here coming into the airplane, so that's a good deal. Let's also turn on no smoking. We should have done that earlier because we were fueling the airplane, and you do no smoking while you're fueling the airplane. So loading has been going on for 12 minutes right now. 46 of 71 passengers are aboard. You can also see the seats are starting to fill up too. Let's go ahead and do the autopilot here. So for that, the best thing to do is start off with the runway heading, which is going to be 282 degrees. So heading, we're going to dial this to 282. And if you look, it's a small little number over there. It's really kind of hard to see. Let's see if we can zoom in just a little bit. Okay, so dial heading. So dial this around. And we're looking for 282. There's 290, 285. There's 282. So there we go. Final cruise. Let's just put in our final cruising altitude, which is 24,000 feet. And that's on top of the altitude tape on the primary flight display. And we're going to 24,000. So slowly crank that up there. I'm using the mouse wheel. I think the general ceiling on this airplane is 25. So there we go. 24,000. Make sure I didn't crank this one. 282, so that's good. Okay, now there's a couple of buttons that we need to do here. First of all, after takeoff, we want it to be in heading mode, so we're going to go to heading hold. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to set a vertical speed on takeoff, and I like my vertical speed to be about 1,500 feet per minute on takeoff. Make sure you hit altitude select. Altitude select is a very important button on this one. So we got to make sure that altitude select is good to go too. And then look down here and see what we have as far as our navigation source. And it's now set to FMS 1. So there's our navigation source. Come on over here, and the altitude here at Billings is 3000. So let's set the baro to 3000. And we'll set the backup to 3000 and look over and see, do we have anything for the first officer? I do try and tie as many of my altimeters together as possible. That is cutting back on a little bit of the realism, but the thing is quite frankly, this is a two-person cockpit and you're going to be busy enough at times. Our squawk code for today's flight, let's go ahead and click this one, and we're going to make it 2000. So big numbers there, 2, and then 000. And we're going to make that active. We're not on VATSIM, but I tend to do these things anyway. It's kind of just good to stay in practice, otherwise you forget when you're on VATSIM. And then VATSIM people get cranky, and you don't want that to happen. The passengers are aboard, 71 passengers, so let's go and start doing a little bit of the weight and balance here. Okay, so there is the flight plan there. Let's do fuel. These are some numbers that you can get off of the flight plan. So let's go and see, do we have a flight plan? Yep, here we are. So the first thing we need is fuel to the alternate. Our alternate is Portland, and it's 606. So click the number 606. There we go, so hit enter. Our 45 minutes is 645 FAR. 645, enter. Our additional 15 minutes is 241. 241. Total, and that's total reserve should be, looks pretty good. There's our total reserve. That looks good. Okay, passengers are 71. We already know that. Hit enter. It does a little bit of math for you, and you can correct it if you want. Okay, cargo. How's our cargo? And they're still loading cargo. There's the cargo number there, and it needs to go, I think, to 11, 1,100 and change. So we're at 964. So we still got a little bit of cargo to load. So we'll still wait for that. Okay, all this is looking pretty good. Let's see. No, we're going to probably be landing here. We'll be landing. I usually do flaps 15 on this airplane. It's going to be a standard approach as opposed to a steep approach. So flaps 15 is generally what I like to do. I also like to come down here and go to fuel system. And this is how we get to verify how much gas we have aboard the airplane. You can look at your flight plan, but you really ought to look at that total fuel. Make sure it matches what it is that shows up on the flight plan. This is also where you'll get flaps, so that's good too. All right, slowly but surely we're putting all of this together. And boy, all of these numbers went away. Oh, probably because I clicked the fuel reserves. So alternate fuel. That's Portland 606. And then hold 645. And 15 minutes is 241. And then we're going to wait for cargo. Okay. How's our cargo? Let's see. Cargo's at 1107. We're almost ready to go. So let's go up here, and passengers are in. We're going to put them in their seats now. So all of that's good. We're almost done loading. Remember, the pushback truck will start to drive up. And look at that. Doors are closing. So doors are closing outside the airplane. Yep, there's the doors are closing. So, I mean, this thing's starting to happen. All right, how's everything else? I'm going to go ahead, and since the APU is up, I'm going to hit the generator switch. And we're going to go and disconnect from ground power. Come on over here and disconnect the GPU. There goes the GPU. Pre-start check. Circuit breakers were in. Passenger signs are on. Emergency lights are now armed. Always good to do that.
Cockpit. Tow is driving
There
up.
comes our pushback truck. Anti-skid is on. That's a switch over here by the co-pilot. Anti-skid is now on. So that's good to do. Fuel transfer is off. Emergency brake pressure has been checked. Power levers are at disconnect. Condition levers are off. Takeoff data has not been done. So let's go over here. And what was our cargo again? 1137. That's actual. So 1137 and enter. And then fuel on board, again, it's 3780. So 3780, enter. Looking good. So there's all of our fuel. We'll go to the performance page now. And then I usually slide over here.
Okay.
And let's do a master crossfill.
All doors and hatches are closed. Ready to connect.
And we're going to go ahead and move this over. Ready to connect. This is when I go and turn on the red beacon. So there goes the red lights are on. And there is all of
and
this.
Adapter in position. Release parking brake when ready to start pushback.
Okay, so we're going to dial that over there. I've got performance over there. Now then, here's a real great safety tip. Come over here and click the lower part of the speed tape, and there's your V-speeds. That's another great little saver. All right, so all of that's good to go. All of these are good. Takeoff data is now done. So before start checks are good. Our start is about to be approved. Are we ready to go? Shall we depart the scene of the crime? Let's go and just have one last look outside the airplane. Hey, look at that. The pushback truck has already pulled the chocks too. Some pushback trucks will pull chocks, sometimes some won't. This one actually does. I say it's time to go. And parking brake is off. And it takes just a second once you do the parking brake. Hey, we've started our pushback. All right, we're clear to start engines. So battery master is on. Doors and lights are out. APU bleed is off.
And you may start engines.
Anti-collision lights are on. Our engines are cleared for start. So it is engine starting time. And we'll leave the after start checks and ready to go there. Shall we turn on engines? Okay, so we start up here. And the first thing to do is we're going to start the one on the right. So selector goes over there and start. And I look down here. Do we start to see numbers rising? We do. Fuel cutoff. There goes our fuel cutoff. And if we look outside, we should start to see the big propellers start to spin. There we go. Spinning props.
Operation complete. Go ahead and set the parking brake.
All right, we'll come back in and parking brake is set.
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
And it looks like we got a pretty good, decent start on our engine number 2. Shall we start engine number 1? So selector goes over to 1 and start. And look down there. Are numbers rising? They are. Fuel cutoffs. And there goes the number 2 engine. We should see the pushback tug start to go away soon. And you can see both props are spinning.
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the left. We'll see you next time and have fun up there.
All right, start on the left. Okay, everything's looking good here. We got 2 engines up and running. How about that? Okay, now that we got those going on, let's go over here and do air conditioning bleeds and temperature to normal. So that looks good. We don't need the APU anymore, so we can go ahead and hit power on the APU. And that's good. Let's also turn up the windshield heat. We may need anti-ice too. Yeah, it's kind of chilly out there. And everything else is looking pretty good up here. Let's go and run the checklist. So external power and APU is now off. Main bus tie. We didn't do that. Main bus tie is off. All right, so that's good to go. Bleed air 1 and 2, we've turned that on. Battery temperatures have been checked. Condition levers are max. So look down there. And condition levers are now to max. So those are the props going up to max. So condition levers are max. Standby hydraulic and PTU controls. That's these buttons right there. Those go on. Okay, standby hydraulic and PTU is good. Now there's a little test you can do. It's not mission critical, but you can go and do the hydraulic 3, and that's going to pressurize the hydraulic 3 switch. You saw that going up there. So that one is on. Elevator travel. So now this is where you would go and look here and do the elevators. And there's elevator test. So that's good. And then after that, you can turn it off and guard it. Okay, so elevator travel was good. Flaps. It's usually flaps 1 for takeoff. So there's our flaps going to flaps 1. So that looks good. Flaps are good. De-ice pressure, that's a small little gauge that the co-pilot checked for us. Let's do a rudder test. And so rudder, there's the rudder test. That looks good. Rudder check is good. Now that we've done that, we can turn on the steering switch. Steering switch is going to be good too. Windshield heat is on. Flight to taxi. This is a little thing. You probably noticed the speed brakes are up. So we're going to go into taxi mode. Radar navcom has been set. The PFD is set too. The yaw dampers. Oh, got to do the yaw dampers. And there goes the yaw damper right there. We'll clear that caution. And there is the yaw damper. And that's a good one. So that looks good. Let's do taxi checks. Taxi light will be on when we're ready to go. We did set the altimeters. Flight instruments are checked. Tank auxiliary pumps 1 and 2. So those are there. We're also going to do the auto feather while we're down there too. So that took care of that. Flaps are set. Trims are set. Takeoff warning has been done. Condition levers are max. Pitot-static heat. That's these 3 switches here. So 1, 2, and the standby are now on. So that's good to go too. Ice protection, we're going to be ready for that. Caution and warning lights. There's still one over there. What one could that be? It says parking brake, so they're all clear. Caution lights are out. Flight clearances are good. The cabin is secured. It is taxi time. So come on up here, and we're going to do the taxi light is now on, so the little light is there, and it's time to go. Look down here. Parking brake is off. Why were we rolling downhill? This airport is not it's not normal. So the airport itself, it's not normal. Yes, it's very abnormal, folks. It's not level. There are some parts of this airport that are simply not level. And let's turn out. The sounds on this airplane are absolutely amazing. So I don't know if you can tell, but we're actually sloping down now. And one of the things is when I was, playing Flight Simulator and taking off from this airport in, say, the Airbus or something like that, on this taxiway, I was always having to jam on the brakes. I always thought, man, I wish these developers would get the idle taxi set right. Well, the thing is I only said that here. I didn't say it at other places. And so, as it turned out, I was a passenger departing here and noticed that the real world pilot was having to jam on the brake. Not jam on the brakes, but the brakes would come on just like when I was being a Flight Simulator pilot, because this airport slopes down. And so, it's sort of like, oh, okay. And then I began to notice that, okay, idle taxi works at other airports that are a little more level than this one. But there is a definite slope to this airport. So that's why it is that I'm not, just picking up the speed and everything else here on the taxi. The sounds, again, I just mentioned it, are amazing. So here we are at idle. Let's kick up the props a bit. That's really awesome. That is really awesome. Okay, there is our lineup. Let's go ahead and let the cabin crew know that we're serious about doing that flying thing. There's the chime. We're at an idle, so cabin crew is notified. We take off with the bleeds off on this airplane. Important safety tip, be sure you turn them back on. Otherwise, you're not going to pressurize the cabin. The passengers pass out. There's blood coming out of their ears and nose, and it's terrible. And just turn on the bleeds after you take off. It's in the checklist, but sometimes you tend to glance over that as you're flying. So, again, important safety tip. And we are out. Let's see. The current time is, where's El Clocko? I can't remember where the clock is on this airplane. Oh, it's okay, right in front of me. It's 13:39. We pushed back right at 13:35. That was our departure time. It's really kind of hard. It's a hard skill to master, and I certainly haven't mastered anything in the world of flight sim. But if you're going to start flying in events like Cross the Pond, Cross the Land, and this Saturday we're doing Cross the Ditch on the Spy Flight over on Twitch. So one of the cool things is about those, I don't know if it's cool, but you have to hit your departure time. You actually have to depart at the correct time because there's so many people that participate, and if you miss your departure time, you don't get to fly. Or you just have to wait forever. Okay, make sure you're positioned in your chair. If you've got a gamer's chair or just a regular chair and it tilts back and you have rudder pedals, lock your chair in. Otherwise, when you start pushing rudder pedals, you're going to tilt back. And if you have a brother or a sister or parents that are easily amused, they're going to laugh at you. So, we just like to avoid that. One of the things that I like to do is, even at an airport that I'm familiar with, I like to have moving maps set up here on a taxi chart. I don't necessarily need the moving maps set up for flying, but taxiing and stuff like that, it's important. You can get lost even at your own hometown airport sometimes. Not fun. All right, we are approaching. So cabin crew's notified. Bleed air 1 and 2. We're going to be cleared for immediate takeoff, so bleeds go off. And that goes to minimal. So those are good. Anti-collision. So we'll go to white right now because we've been cleared on the runway for immediate takeoff. So out we go. So anti-collision is good. Transponder and TCAS. On. So that's good. Whoops. And flight controls. Nothing moves. What's the problem? Important safety tip. This is the control lock. Always do that, and then your flight controls work. There you go. Never forget the control lock. Flight to taxi. We're going to get ready to go, and that's this little switch there. That goes there too. And lighting. Landing lights will go on. We're good to go there. We'll preset after takeoff checks. Flaps are set for takeoff too. We're ready to go. This point, this is usually, unless I care, if there's a SID, perhaps I'll go and track myself out there if it's one I'm not familiar with. In this case, I usually turn that off and then just minimize that for departure. Adding a little bit more power. There's this thing on this airplane, it's called the gate. Okay, so if you look here, there is a level, there's a point in the throttles when you move it forward that you can't go any further. And it's sort of like a little safety. And on this airplane, on the real airplane, there's a little thing that you grip the levers and you pull up with your fingers, and that releases the gate. The way that I'm doing that with the Thrustmaster throttle controls is that's my auto throttle cutoff buttons, and that's how I get beyond the gate. Seems to work pretty good on this airplane. I haven't really had a need for the auto throttle disconnect, at least not really, so that seems to work for me. Out onto the runway. See, we cleared ourselves for immediate takeoff, so we get to do these things. This does not fly like a jet. It's very easy to over-control this airplane. And once we get lined up, the last thing you do is turn on the landing lights, let the world know this airplane's serious about doing that flying thing. So landing lights are on. And looks good. We're relatively lined up. So I'm going to hold down my little release the gate buttons. You see how those little things popped up? We're beyond the gate. Go to flight rating. And it's flying time. Airspeed's alive. I usually kind of push the nose down a little bit because there's some airports that have bumpy. There's V1. And rotate. Positive rate, landing gear. So long, Big Bill. Follow your flight directors. And for some reason, it doesn't really like us to go over to Bill. So I move over. There's the middle marker. And there is our heading direct to Bill. Then all of a sudden, it's when you get over Bill, it sort of wakes up. The flight directors will wake up on you. Waypoint alert. Almost to Bill. And now we're going to Armady. Let's do a gentle turn. And if you feel like it, you can come over here and hit AP. Speed's coming up. We'll do flaps at 190, 180, and 190. Let's see, we should have gone to nav mode. We didn't do that. Let's see if it moves. There we go. Forgot to do that one. At 200, we'll change from vertical speed to IAS and climb at 200 knots. After takeoff checklist, landing gear is up, flaps are up, climb power is not set. There it is. Climb power is set. Bleed air 1 and 2. Yes, let's do that. So engine bleeds go on and the temperature goes back to normal. System hydraulic and PTU. We'll turn these both off. We can also turn off let's see, tank auxiliary pumps 1 and 2, we're going to do those, and auto feather is off too. Engine temperatures, we're going to monitor that, and ice protection. Cabin pressure and temperature controls. The big thing is make sure that you're pressurizing your airplane. You go beyond the white zone, you're killing your passengers and it's terrible. And okay, I'll stop being so dramatic. Okay, there we go. And there we go. There's our departure. Let's see. We can look down here and widen out the map a little bit. There's Armady. I always like to keep my heading bug aligned with our direction of travel. So that's a good thing to do. Past 10,000 feet, landing lights can go off. Landing lights are off. Let's also do a cabin call. Cabin crew, let them know that, hey, we're past 10,000 feet. They'll do the, hey, sit down, the seatbelt sign's still not off. And up, we've got a couple of fluffy little clouds about. Let's see here. Airplane's looking really pretty good here. We're on FMS1, indicated airspeed, direct to Armady, the heading looks good. True airspeed is set, ground speed. Just reminding myself where all the little buttons are. Oh, there's the clock. Boy, there's another clock right there. Okay, over here. Nothing funky, nothing turning red on the engines. That's an important thing to do, to check. Let's see, static air temperature is -6. We are in the icing zone. So we do have some icy clouds out there. We may need to turn on the prop anti-ice. If we really get socked into clouds, that'll be a good thing to do. Okay, we'll go ahead and move this to 80 now. So there's performance over there. That's looking pretty good. Yeah, we've still got these clouds out here to be worried about. I'm going to at least do my props. I think you also on this thing, it's a good idea to do the engine intakes. So there's a little bit of ice there on the props. And then if it's really bad, then you can turn on the slow airframe anti-ice controls. Okay, everything else looks good. Because yeah, we're coming into some frosty clouds. It's not like it's a winter storm or anything, but we've had some cold air come down from Canada, and well, there you go. Let's see, one more click of the heading bug. And that looks pretty good. Passing 15,000 feet. Next thing for us to do is going to be altimeters, really. Generally, in the big jets, 25,000 feet is my seatbelt altitude. unless they, it's, a bumpy climb, or there's going to be turbulence or something like that. In this airplane, they probably leave seatbelts on until, final cruise. I've never actually been a passenger on one of these. "17 miles from Armady. Then after that, I think it's Helena. Wow, boy, am I glad I took the time to download ortho scenery today. Pretty much wherever I fly, if I've got ortho scenery, you can pretty much guarantee that it's going to be cloudy and nasty, and it's just my luck on that one. On the other hand, above the clouds like this, X-plane is really, really nice. And we get these incredibly good airplanes. Some of the things that I'll be doing is reminding myself of some of the places we're going. We're going to be going to the C10 gates. Now, I believe that is, I think that's over here. There's Charlie 10. So this is the gate we're going to. And this is where all the little Q planes go. There's C gates and Q gates. We're going to this one over here. So it's always good to kind of have okay, that's where we're going there. And that's where the real airplane's going. I try to find where the real airplane's going. Landing, 16 setter. So if we get off on the mic, it puts us right out to our gate. Always good to just take a look at those sorts of things. And then you can see over here, there's our route of flight. And if you want to, you can turn on flight tracking. I generally won't leave flight tracking on too many things. And if you're using Sim Toolkit Pro, I've already got flight tracking on here anyway. So you can kind of see, we also see a little bit of weather. You could also turn on traffic from VATSIM in Sim Toolkit Pro too. But generally with the flight sims these days, I'm trying to run as few applications outside of the sim as I can. 18,000 feet, so push for standard and push for standard. And altimeters are checked and set. Pretty good. It's nice and smooth. Let's go ahead and we're going to ring the bell again for the cabin crew. That is just a bell for the cabin crew saying, okay, you guys can get up and start doing cabin crew stuff. It's going to be a fairly calm flight, especially in the morning. Another thing we could probably do as we're taking a look at stuff is we could go over to, not Aviation Weather, although that's a great website. I was going to go to METAR TAF. And let's go and put in KSEA, SeaTac. We're planning on landing on the 16s, probably the center, so the wind's just right down the runway at 3 knots. It's raining in Seattle. Can you imagine that? We got overcast at 10,000, broken at 8, and scattered and few at 6,000. Not very windy. Looks like a typical morning in Seattle. One of the things I will do, though, is when I take a look at these things, I might go and copy off that METAR and put it right in here in my flight notes. That way I've got the latest METAR. Just wanted to have a look and see, how's our winds? What's the weather like? Just a great thing to do. Especially, at this point when we're doing the climb out, there's not so much to see or do. Okay, there's ASU. You can see we've also got, there's the Bozeman Airport. So it's good to have airports like this. If we lose an engine, where could we go? Where can you land? Well, generally at this point, this is 40, so Bozeman's about 80 miles away. You think we could, glide down on one engine to Bozeman, or do we need to go to some of these other, Lewistown or something like that? Lewistown, is that it? That's Livingston. I don't get out to a lot of the towns anymore, so I'm already starting to forget. Coming up to 20,000. So our top of climb is going to probably be 24,000. So we got a little bit of time to go. So performance 1 is looking really, really good. Generally at this point, I like to slide over here and I'll put performance on the first officers and go to VNAV over here. we could look first of all at flight plan and see, okay, so after passing Ashu, excuse me, then we look over here and see, do we have any funky altitudes in there? No. So after we get to final cruise, I'll go in and we'll put in VNAV. And that's going to give us a nice top of descent. And this thing handles VNAV pretty good on your descent there. But we need to wait till we get to final cruise before we can do that. Important safety tip, always make sure if you're climbing or descending, altitude select is set. If you don't have altitude select set on this airplane, it just goes sailing through whatever altitude you've decided to. You have to tell it to not only set the altitude, but tell it to stop there. A real-world Q400 pilot says that that is one of the annoying things about this airplane. I'm shocked to hear that there's annoying things about airplanes. On the other hand, this pilot really likes flying Q400s. Just loves them. I think I would probably enjoy that too. I think if I had the opportunity to be a Q400 pilot or something like that, I'd probably really enjoy the job too. I think it'd be nice. Doesn't have to be the biggest jet to have a good time. So engines are doing good. I generally will leave the second PFD. You could also set it over to, you could have it electrical, engines, fuels. You could also have it on doors. Make sure your doors are closed. I usually leave it on fuel. It seems to work the best for me, so that I can take a look at fuel, make sure that fuel's in good shape. All the lights are good there. We're out of the clouds, so I'm going to go and turn off the engine intake and turn off the prop de-icers. I think that this airplane will also yell at you if there is icing problems, so that'll take care of it too. Cruise. Altimeters, we can already check off altimeters. Power is not set. Pressurization, we'll check that in just a second. But let's go and have one quick look at it. And you can see we're pressurizing the airplane to about 7,500 feet. That's a good number. And passing 22,000 feet. Back in the cabin, the flight attendant probably walked back, made an announcement, and is probably getting the morning coffee thing. I don't know, over on United for a morning flight, you get a cup of morning coffee and then a stroopwafel. I don't know what they do for Alaska. There's a little beep. We've got 1,000 feet to go. Generally, what it is that I will do on these kinds of flights is I will, after we get to cruise, we take a quick look at the descent and approach, and then usually what I will do is hit the pause button, and then for you can go and hit the pause button too, and then when you get close to about 100 miles from top of descent, that's when you can start the video again. And so you actually just get to sit and look out the window and enjoy. Although I guess with the clouds there's not much to see today. About 500 and change to go. And we are 3 miles from Ashu. Hydraulics are good. Hydraulic pressure's good. Standby does not have pressure, but everything else does. Fuel is not leaking profusely, so we're not losing a bunch of gas. If you look over here to the performance, you can see overhead at Seattle, we should have the fuel on board should be 1.784. The flight plan says we should have 1.492. So we're actually ahead of fuel. We're in good shape as far as fuel. You could also have set a couple of ETAs. I've never been too terribly successful at setting those ETAs. Okay, we're just overhead Ashu. 200 feet to go, and we are now direct to Helena. 92 miles to Helena. And I always like to go over here, reset the heading bug ahead. There we go. And there we are coming up on our final cruising altitude. Can look down here and let's go to engine systems temporarily. And as we settle into 24,000 feet, we're going to move the prop lever down. So the prop control is right here, and it was set to 900 for climb. We'll go to 850 for cruise. And then this is just going to keep you below the little red line. You know, your VNE, never exceed speed. And so that pretty much, now it will, if you get a weather change, it is going to beep you up a little bit. So our speed's kind of kicking up a little bit there. So let's go ahead and we'll move that lever down. This airplane doesn't really have the kinds of speed brakes that we're used to. So over on the Thrustmaster Airbus, that's my speed brake control. And it seems to, the Airbus detents for the speed brake works perfectly there. I also am able to use the flap controls, and the flap controls work very, very well. So 5, 10, 15. I've rarely done a flaps 35 landing. I think you use flaps 35 if you're coming into one of those steep airports like Billy Bishop or something like that up in Toronto. Okay, 24,000. Our speed is going to slowly kind of creep up here. We can set a vertical speed now. So again, I usually go and check and see where we are. We're going to Helena, and I will look at altitudes. Are there any higher altitudes? If there's no higher altitudes, and it's all just a descent from there, I will go here and go and hit target vertical speed, plus or minus, which changes it to a minus 1,800 feet per minute, and enter, and this gives you a top of descent. We are 458 miles from top of descent. So now we've got that, and that's good and set. So as far as this is concerned, this gives us our distance to go. We're doing pretty good. It says an hour and 46 minutes worth of flying time. Once we start our descent preparations are going to be pretty simple on this one. So we just heading to Helena right now. We'll go just to the north of Missoula, over Coeur d'Alene, Spokane, and come in. This is the typical approach. So we can clean up a few things. We'll get rid of the Billings. I don't think we're going to Billings again, so we don't need the ground chart. The Glazer arrival, we're coming in over Mullen Pass, over Spokane. Props and turboprops, maximum of 250 knots, and cross and maintain at 10,000 feet here, and that's at Jackson. After Jackson, there's a turbojets here, and another turbojets, generally between Woody and Heather. This is when I start to vector myself away from this. 10,000 feet is pretty good. There's some hills out here. And then after that, we'll come in and we'll generally try and come in a little bit to the north of Arica here. And at Arica, we're supposed to be at 5,000 feet. So that's pretty good. The ILS is 111.7. You do have to set that in. We'll set all that in there. Minimums for a Category 1 landing are 630 feet. Not a bad deal coming into Seattle. And then we already talked about we want to try and stop on the Mike high-speed taxiway, and that takes us right into Horizon Land here at SeaTac. And yes, I'm guessing that there's probably going to be a Starbucks counter waiting for us right there. So we're good to go. And now it's just a matter of let's sit back and enjoy the flight. That's part of the fun of all of this. And some people kind of wonder what's the point of flight simming. Well, part of the fun of flight simming is you get to get in a really complex airplane and go someplace, and you don't have to worry about a crazy passenger starting a fight or take off your shoes at security, and your credit card remains remarkably intact. Not very intact. I mean, flight simming will do that sort of thing to you, but your credit card's a little more intact, so that kind of helps out. So there you go. And that's kind of what we're going to do. I'm going to fly along here. It's fairly early in the morning here at Spy HQ, so I'm going to hit the pause button. It's breakfast time and time for a second cup of coffee. Enjoy your flight, and I will rejoin you 100 miles from top of descent. Now, if only there were no clouds and we could see the scenery, huh? Hey, welcome back. All right. Yeah, for me, it was just, well, it was actually for a while. For you, it was just a few seconds. I hope you've been having a nice flight, too. Tell you what, we've been doing really good here. Seatbelt sign is off. We've served the coffee. We've served the snacks. And if you look down here at VNAV, we have 96 miles to go. So we are even closer to Seattle. So it's time for us to start final descent preps here. And usually the first thing that I like to do is a quick weather check. And we've already looked at it once, but let's take a look at METAR-TAF again. Again, a great website for visualizing weather, so KSEA. And SeaTac. Well, we have had a little bit of a wind shift here. In fact, it looks like 3/4s are the better runway to use here now. What's the wind? About 4 knots. So let's see, with a wind shift like this, let's take a look and see what's going on at the real SeaTac. So let's go to FlightAware, and let's do KSEA, and let's see what the real SeaTac is doing. See if they're landing north or south. SeaTac is still landing to the south right now, so they're still landing to the south, and oh my gosh, look at the rain over Seattle. Yeah, so much for the scenery there, huh? Yeah, okay. See, we can go to the bottom of the FlightAware page and get the latest METAR here. So we can go and copy that over, and I'm going to put those in the flight notes. I say we stick with what's going on at the real world here. So we can continue to do that sort of thing. Another place that we could have gone online is Digital ATIS. And Digital ATIS is a really cool website too. It's only ATIS for the United States. It'd be great if there was something like this around the world, but here's Seattle, information Bravo. Winds are 260 at 4. I have 280 at 4, so this is getting a little bit old. This was 1453 Zulu. Mine is 1453 Zulu 2. Oh, okay, I was reading the wrong line. Yeah, 8 miles visibility, rain, and ILS runways 16 right and 16 left, or approaches are in use. Departing runway is 16 left. Simultaneous approaches, and I don't see bird activity in the vicinity of the airport. Yeah, so that is the latest weather. So we're good to go with the latest weather. Everything is looking good. Now for the next part of the descent, since our plan stays basically the same, we come over here and take a look at Glazer. And Jackson, we want to be 250 knots and 10,000 feet. So that's going to be our initial descent. So let's come on over here to altitude, and we're going to dial in 10,000 feet. Important safety tip on this airplane: be sure that you hit the altitude select button. Altitude select is an important button to hit. 9876321 and altitude select. And it should say so over in the primary flight display. How we doing here? We are 81 miles from top of descent, so that's 16 minutes away. Beyond that, we know that we're going to continue with our plan. Right now, our plan was to land on 16 center. Real world is landing on the other runways. Why don't we just stick with 16 center? We're in the sim world, okay? And over here on the ILS plate, so the approach plate right here, we're going to need 111.7. So 111.7. So click this. And the small one, we need to kick that up to 7 and make it active. Okay, so that looks pretty good. The next thing that we're going to need to do is dial in our inbound course. Now to do this, right now we've got the what's the word I'm looking for? The FMC is in control of everything, but what we need to do is dial in the course. So what we're going to do is go down and hold the format button down for a second, and then you can change the course heading to the inbound course, which is 164 degrees. And so let's dial that over. There's 145, 164. It's right there. It's a small little number like everything in here. And look and see. Okay, there we go. Then go down and hit the format button again. And that's how you set your inbound course for this too. All right, so we're currently heading 261 degrees. And I could dial this over one little click here. So heading's over one little notch. We've already passed Spokane. If you look very closely, you can see we have a top of descent indicator there. So there's top of descent indicator. So at this point, we're gonna just chill. The next thing that could happen, we can go over here and we could set the decision height. So the decision height is down here. Category 1 landing is what we're expecting, so 630 feet. So 630. So switch this over to MDA and 630. And there is 4, 5, and 630. The MDA is now set, so that's good to go too. Or you could have set it, the decision height to 200 feet. There's two different ways to do that. So we're in great shape here. I don't know that there's too much else that we can do except drink coffee. At least for the next 66 miles. Now, at 10 miles out, you're going to notice, now there's no audible, real big notification. So it's just you get a amber message on the FMC, and it says message. So when you click message, there's nothing there. When you click it again after we get our next message, it's going to show up and say that that's your VNAV top of descent notification, at which point you can come up here and hit the VNAV button. The airplane starts doing that VNAV thing. Over here on the checklist, there is a descent checklist. Altimeters are set. Approach and landing briefing, we just did that. The cabin altitude controls. Always a good idea to make sure the cabin altitude controls were still pressurized, 7,500 feet. We still have a landing altitude set in there. So I would say cabin is good. Ice protection, we're going to keep an eye out for that. And the descent checklist is good. Now, approach checklist, that's another altimeter check. That's after 18,000 feet. So we're good here. We just get to kind of sit back, do your cup of coffee. Be so nice. Actually, over outside of Helena and over central Montana and the Continental Divide, the clouds actually broke apart a little bit. So I was able to kind of go back here to the passenger seat and just sort of look out the window and enjoy. Saw some lakes and stuff like that. Ortho scenery is really nice. It takes forever to process and download, but you know, that does make it a little bit more fun. Microsoft Flight Simulator is better for scenery. X-Plane has amazing airplanes still. So there we go there. For already got plans this week for some fun flights on the spy flight. The whole reason I'm doing this flight right now was to remind myself of, you know, how this thing works. Because one of the flight suggestions over on Twitch was to do a flight on this ride. So let's see, flights for today, Geneva, and then we're going to be flying this one in Norway. Friday we're departing out of Riga. Saturday is Cross the Ditch, Auckland to Melbourne, and that's a big VATSIM event. Still not 100% sure. I'm thinking of either the MD-11 or one of the new airplanes in Microsoft Flight Simulator, the 737 from PMDG or the Phoenix A320, one of those two. So that would probably be, one of those might be nice. Right now I'm trying to do a video here on YouTube twice a week. So basically a complete flight with most of cruise cut out, so that it's just a very, very quiet fly-along type of a flight that you can do too. I'm going to try and mix up the airplanes as best I can, but a lot of the questions and comments that I'm getting over on Twitch are about the PMDG and the Phoenix. Those are the airplanes that just are absolutely rocking the flight sim world right now. Amazing airplanes on an amazing platform. Still though, you know, over here in X-Plane, we've got this one, the Q400. We have the Beluga, the A310 and 300 from AnyBuilds. My personal favorite still remains the Rotate MD-11 and my old buddy, the Flight Factor 757. I mean, the level of immersion and faithful representations of those airplanes are absolutely spectacular. There are still rumors that the AnyBuilds A310 is coming to Microsoft Flight Simulator. I haven't heard much about that, though. Not that, you know, I'm hearing that much anyway, but still. And 46 miles to go. I think pretty much we're all set. Cabin crew is probably running through the cabin right now, getting ready to start, you know, with a little trash can, you know. Give us your coffee cups back, and your water bottles and stuff. Generally, I'm usually one of those. I'm not that big of a coffee snob, but I usually will pick up a cup of coffee in the terminal, and that's usually what I do. If for no other reason than it's already kind of made the way I want it, and I can spend most of my time looking out the window. I think if there was ever a day where, you know, you could just hop on a plane and go and do a, you know, fun flight without worrying about crazy people and other stuff like that in airplanes. I kind of like to do this flight as a passenger once. I think it'd be fun. Yes, it means that I would basically just hang out at the airport and stuff until the flight came back, but that's okay. That's part of the fun of being an airplane geek. Our fuel has been really good. So overhead at Seattle, we're going to have still 1.7 kgs of fuel on board. The flight plan said 1.4, so we actually came out a little bit ahead, which is very nice. This is where we're at right now, as far as fuel on board. About 146 miles to go into Seattle, and 37.2 miles, so 7 minutes to go until we do our descent. One of the things that I really do like about this airplane, though, is the electronic flight bags checklisting system. This is a really complex one. I think the only thing that would make this thing better is if, as you do things, it checks stuff off. I think that would be kind of nice, but I can live without that. And the other thing that I really wish that developers would do on a little bit more of a religious basis is call-outs, V-speed call-outs for takeoff. When you're hurtling down the runway at thousands of miles an hour at warp factor 10, and you've got to look down at your airspeed, you know, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm just a crappy pilot, I'm not sure, but I always get a little wobbly on, you know, I want to keep my eyes out the road, you know, down the road, look down the road, as opposed to looking at the instruments, but I need to look down here. you know, to see, okay, did we hit 80 knots? Is that V1? Is that rotate? And maybe I'm just not looking correctly. I'm not sure. But what I'd really, you know, the real airline pilots, okay? So the pilot flying, whether it's the captain or the co-pilot, you know, the first officer, whoever is flying gets to keep their eyes down the runway, you know? And the pilot not flying is actually reading out airspeed callouts, you know, 80 knots, V1, rotate. I really wish that developers would plug those sorts of things in. And there's some airplanes that do it very, very well. It really does. I think the PMDG 737 has airspeed callouts. So, not that I think that many developers are going to ever listen to me, let alone watch this YouTube channel, but boy, that would be nice. It doesn't have to be elaborate, you know. Even just a V1 and rotate. You don't even have to do, you know, 100 knots or 80 knots. You know, don't have to do positive rate. How are we doing here? 25 miles to top of descent. We're still waiting for the amber or gold message light to flash down there too. And then we'll activate VNAV and watch the show. Nothing really to worry about up here. We did go through an area of clouds, so while we were flying around, I did turn on the engine intakes and the props, the de-icing. I turned those back on, but we're now kind of clear of the clouds. I was on the other side of the Continental Divide. Didn't really see an awful lot of weather or anything like that. There was a little bit of light rain, but as we kind of came over Mullen Pass here, I did have to turn on the anti-ice then, and as you can see, we're now over the rain zone. I don't know how accurate the radar is on this. So it did show a top of descent over there at Mullen Pass. We've definitely passed that. The airplane says something different. So let's trust the airplane on this one. 20 miles to go, so in 10 miles we'll get our little message. The METAR does say that there's light rain in Seattle, which I think there's probably always light rain in Seattle. Let's go ahead and I'm going to dial the map in now to 40 miles. I generally will let the airplane handle the descent. It seems to, as far as throttles, but I will start throttling it back and getting my speed under control, my own control, as we start to get closer to that target altitude. "16 miles, so in 6 miles we should get our little amber message. Nothing showing up here on the annunciator trouble panel there, so all of our alerts are clear. One of the things that I haven't learned about doing on this airplane is the fire system stuff is pretty nicely modeled up here. You can kind of see as I slide off to the side, it's actually recessed within this panel here, which is kind of neat. And there are fire tests that you do on every flight. I still have not jump down the rabbit hole of learning, okay, how do we do the fire tests on this airplane? I should read the manual. Okay, there's 12 miles there. Feels good. Famously, this is the Q400 from FlyJSim. It's a little late now, but you can open the door here. You can also open the bathroom door. And you can flush the toilet if you want to, because hey, nothing says flight simming like flushing toilets. But it does give you something to laugh at. Again, they modeled that, which I thought, really? I just like to think that they have a sense of humor. Okay, see where it says message is flashing? So message, top of descent alert. At which point now we can come up here and I'm going to hit the VNAV button. And if you look over here, altitude select and VNAV are both indicated. And we are going to start our own descent in 7.8 miles. So we're just going to watch the airplane do its descent. Props are still in cruise mode. Power is still where the power is supposed to be. Generally, you don't need to really adjust this much on the descent. The VNAV path says we have to be at 12,000 feet at Jackson and 5,000 feet at Erica. I think we're going to probably be okay there. And looks like things are starting to disappear from the controls there. It says we're on TA only. Did I mess something up here? We're on altitude there. Did I forget to turn on some traffic? It says TA only. I think I forgot to do something. We've got vertical deviation is now indicated. So my jokes at this point in time will become an awful lot more deviant. And yes, there's another bad joke for you. 2.5 miles to top of descent. The speeds up here, if you click the altitude tape again, watch those little numbers here. Did you notice they go down a little bit? If you click it again, that's going to give you some speeds for landing, which is really kind of handy. And top of descent should be up. There we are. And are we starting our descent? Here comes the vertical deviation indicator. So we're going to watch out here. VNAV path has just been enunciated up here. And look at that. We are now going down. Here comes VNAV path. Now our speed's starting to pick up, so let's go ahead and roll the throttles down a little bit. And I usually roll my throttle back until we're going to maintain about 250 knots for the descent. I don't want to go too slow because remember, we're also occupying the same space as big jets. And so you don't want to get in their way. We could also go and do seatbelts. And if we go back to the passenger cabin, seatbelt light is on. So 248, I'm going to add just a little bit of throttle here. So we're going back down in terms of our speed. I want to hold about 240, 250 knots on my descent. And down we go. Rechecking our flight notes. The altimeter is 2997 in Seattle. At this point in the real flight, captain or first officer who's ever handling the cabin would call back and say, well, folks, we've started our descent into Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. Right now, SeaTac is about 100 miles to the west of us right now. They're currently reporting rain, a light breeze out of the west. And there's overcast clouds at 9,000 feet, so that's just another confirmation that we're coming into Seattle. Does look like traffic into Seattle is fairly normal, but we should be able to get you on time. Right now we are on time. Expect to have you at the gate a little bit before 9:20 in the morning. And they'll probably also say something like, it's been a pleasure having you aboard, and certainly hope that you'll fly with us again real soon. Speed went up above 250. So I'm rolling my throttles back just a little bit more to get below 250 knots as we go down. Coming up on 18,000 feet, we're going to do our altimeters in just a second too. That's transition altitude in the United States, 18,000 feet. I believe Canada too. Other airports, a lot of other countries, the transition altitudes are all over the place, and you need to look at the charts to find those out. There's 18,000 feet. I think that's close enough. Altimeter is 2997. So let's go 2997. 2997 and 2997 on the backups. Altimeters are checked and set, so come on over to approach. Altimeters are set. Lights are next. We'll do that at 10,000 feet. We're right on our VNAV path here, so that's good. And about 240 knots, that's pretty good too. Looking over at the charts, we do have an airspeed restriction though. And the airspeed restriction is 250 knots, which is what we're at Jackson. So not bad. And there's Jackson. They want us to be at 12. It says 12,000 at Jackson. That was for turbojets. So the flight plan says is a turbojets kind of a thing. So the star that is in the nav data, we were supposed to be at 10,000 feet here. So that was something we should have caught. Had I been a better pilot with more attention to detail. And speed's starting to come down a little bit. Supposed to be at 250 knots there at Jackson. You can see there is Jackson and Woody and Heather. There's Erica over there. I'm going to go ahead and continue my descent to 5,000 feet now for Erica. We're gonna miss the mountains. So let's go to 5,000 feet for Erica. We're not going to go splat, which is nice. Coming up on Jackson, this is looking good. This is a 20 miles, so that's about 35 miles away. At this point, I'm going to probably, since we're 25 miles out, I'm going to start reducing my speed just a little bit here. I would like to be a little bit closer to 210. After Jackson. We'll go to Woody and then make the turn. Does look like it's going to have us fairly close to 12,000 feet at Jackson, though, so that's pretty good. Just a little bit above Jackson. If you're new to all this, have Navigraph open, go to Moving Map, just so you got a really nice reminder of where everything is. It does help. I generally, whoa, we didn't mean to make it that big. I generally use my Moving Map most of the time now, though. That's mostly over on ground charts. Speed's kind of coming down a little bit. We're 2 miles from Jackson. We're going to hit Jackson right at 12,000 feet, it looks like. The airplane handled this very well. I just should have checked my altitude since I'm a prop liner. And there we go. And we're going to continue down at Woody. After Woody, on our way to Heather, we'll go direct to Erica. Here comes our speed down a little bit too, because I want to hold about 210. So increase that throttle just a little bit. There's about 215. Good. And as we look out the windows, there's not a lot to see, as I would expect. Current temperature outside the airplane's -7. I think we're at least going to have engine intake anti-ice and prop anti-ice. I would think that that is the proper thing to do. Okay, we're below 210. I want to hold 210, so speed needs to come up a little bit. I've left my my heading indicator over here. We're starting to slow our descent just a little bit. So we may need to take over our own descent here. So at this point, we could go to vertical speed, and we're going to do our own thing. How about 1,000 feet per minute for the moment? Speed's going to come up, so reduce the throttles now to hold 210 or thereabouts. Coming up on 10,000 feet, we can go and do lights. So external lights. We'll pre-arm the nose light. Let's also come down here and do 10,000 foot cabin call for the flight attendants. Lights are now on. GPWS landing flap, we selected that. That's flaps 15. Fuel transfer is off. Tanks 1 and 2 auxiliary pumps go back on. So those are now back on. Standby hydraulic and PTU. Those go on as well. Hydraulic pressure and quantity is good. Passenger signs are on. Caution and warning lights are extinguished. Our cabin is secure, and we are good there. Our next checklist is landing. Okay, this is a very good time if you're like me and you're in cruise and you're kind of getting comfortable in your flight, in your chair. Get yourself, this is what we call a posture check over on Twitch. We're almost to Woody. And as we keep coming around, we are after Woody. There's Heather. Now we're going to go to heading select. And that should start a turn off to the right. And there's our turn off to the right. Temperature outside the airplane's -3. We've got visible precip. Probably should turn on a little bit of slow airframe anti-icing too. And down we go here. Let's gonna drop this down to 20. And now at this point, we're done. We're gonna switch the nav source over to the VOR, and we are starting to pick up the ILS. ILS 1 is 111.7. Always really good idea. Come on over here to your charts. 111.7. Definitely important to verify those things. And we're slowly making our way down to 5,000 feet at Erica. Our speed, got a little bit slow. Let's add a little bit of power on this one. Should be closer to 210 at this point. There is the approach button. We're going to be activating the approach button as we get a little bit closer here to the ILS, but we are picking up glide slope and localizer now. And, oh, yippee. Boy, look at that great ortho scenery and that fabulous Seattle scenery, too. Seriously, what is it with the scenery designers that always pick the places that have the worst weather to design their scenery? Just saying. Asking for a friend of mine. How does that sound? Okay, landing gear, flaps, condition levers go to max, bleed air goes to minimum and off. Flight attendant re-notification, everything is really in good shape. Let's go and do one more check of our weight, fuel, and balance. Let's click the button. Yeah, it didn't change at all. So we're going to land about 150 or so. Nothing to worry about down here. All of this is good. Nothing to worry about up there. We are 10 miles now, a little more than 10 miles from Erica as we're getting, whoa, speed got way up there, 230. I wanted to be at 210. No auto throttle. So we're getting closer to Erica. As we get a little closer to Erica, I'm going to make a turn in towards, and in fact, now's probably a great time to do this. So heading, and I'm going to make it just a little bit beyond Erica here. There we go. As we approach the checkpoint, you can see glide slopes coming up, and we're turning towards Erica. And out the window, well, I can see a little bit of scenery, so that's not bad. Coming up on 5,000 feet, so we're just a little bit above that glide slope coming on in. Temperature outside the airplane is that plus or -7? Can't see it. It's +7. When it gets to be +10, we can turn off some of the anti-ice. We're no longer in visible moisture, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off the ice protection on the airframe, but I'm going to leave engine intake and prop ice on. That's just me trying to figure out how to do this. I have no special insight. It's not exactly my plan. You know, there's not necessarily a plan. It's just what I'm doing. Let's go a few more degrees in. There's 5,000 feet. I'm going to go ahead and arm my approach now. Okay, there it is. It's white annunciators over here to say that it's armed. So that's looking good. How's our airspeed? 210, almost right where I want it. That never happens. Coming up on 5,000 feet, this is looking good. I never hit my altitude select button, but it's just snagged the glide slope. So tragedy averted. Localizer is green and has a star. We are snagging the localizer. Check our airspeed as we come around. They're probably, because we're flying around with big jets, they're going to keep our speed up to about 210. And maybe by the time we get to Magnum, they would say 180 to Soto. 180 knots to Soto, clear for the ILS approach is what ATC would be telling us about now. I think we're in good shape. One last click of my map, now 10-mile range. So at Magnum, we'll start to slow it down to 180. In fact, our speed's actually starting to come up a bit, and we're so close to Magnum, let's go ahead and pull the throttles back a little bit and see if we can't get to 180. I start throwing the flaps out at 200 knots or so. Let's also go ahead and I'm going to reset my heading bug if we have to go missed. This will be a good indicator of straight ahead. Missed approach is after takeoff, you fly straight ahead and make a left turn, and you go to a checkpoint called POA, I guess. So and hold. Localizer and glide slope are green, so those are nicely set up. Speed's still coming down, not quite as fast. I'm going to go and roll the props back even more. Notch your flaps. How about landing gear? Let's go outside. Here comes wheels. Always good to have those for landing. There's our wheels. Lights are good too. Speed's coming down even more. Let's go props full now for landing. Start slowing that speed reduction down, and we are now flaps 15 for landing. So landing gear is down, 3 green, flaps are out, condition levers are full, bleed air 1 and 2. We'll just go and take this temperature down to minimum. 2,500. And the flight attendants are going to get notified. Preset after landing checks, that's good. Let's go down here, ring the bell for the flight attendants, and we are good to go. What's our speed? Right around 149. We're going to make it around 150 or so. So this is what we're going to do for our landing. Check over there, flaps are 15. Checklist is good. Sit back, make sure you can put your feet on your rudder pedals if you have them. Make sure you can reach over and grab your stick and your throttles. So this thing, you remember when we took off, there was the little gate thing that popped up there? So you need to be able to push the 2 little buttons to get past the gate. And you might need to push them again to put the props into beta, into reverse prop. I've generally found that that's not a huge big deal. There are no auto brakes on this airplane, so gently does it with the brakes. We're looking pretty good here. Winds right now are coming at us from the west at 5 knots, according to the airplane. The pilot not flying, almost always in a lot of the airplane videos that I see, they're always saying things like, you know, reminding the pilot flying, okay, wind's coming from this way. And I thought that that was really nice. I let my speed go down a little too much. Still letting the autopilot do some of the work here. If you're kind of rusty with an airplane like I am on this one, that's a good thing to do. Let the autopilot do some of the work. No shame in that. Okay, there's our speed up to 140. I think we're doing pretty good. Hands on the stick. Make sure our speed's good, everything else is good, nothing else, so we can fly the airplane now. AP is off, captain's got the airplane. It does not beep at you as dramatically as other airplanes when you turn off the AP. Our speed is relatively good, so one of the things that the real Q400 pilots say is don't be pulling your power. Treat it like a jet. You don't pull your power and stuff like that until you're on the runway. Or maybe just barely above it. Terrain is going to yell at you a little on this airplane. I think there's a way to turn that off.
100. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Reverse. Some braking. Oh my gosh. Got blown off to the side there, didn't I? Up above reverse. Manual braking. I still think that my rudder pedals are just way too, sensitive. Hey, welcome to SeaTac. Off the runway. We'll do landing lights. Don't want to blind anybody. See, I did leave the engine intakes and all of those. We're going to turn those off. Flaps just went up. So how we doing here? Control lock. That's this thing right here. Control lock is on. And it got a little bit too slow here. Let's get over to the hold short line. If you're on VATSIM and you're controlling yourself, there's no ATC. I always like to take a look outside the airplane. If I'm crossing a runway, make sure that I'm not going to cross in front of somebody. Yaw damper is going to go off. So control lock. Transponder is going to stay on. Radar is off. Flaps are up. Tank pumps 1 and 2. Off and off. Still not moving very much. Come on, airplane. We also can turn off the hydraulic PTU and standby. And that's good. The yaw damper is off. Spoiler is gone to taxi mode. Anti-collision should be going to red. So we were white. We're going to red. And that's good. Lights are good. Pitot static switches are going off. The 2 peters are going off. So we're not being totally tubular there. Here's our hold short line. Outside we go. Like I said, just quick. Anybody on the runway there? Anybody on the runway there? If you're on VATSIM, no ATC. That's just a very nice, courteous thing to do. You don't want to pull in front of somebody. Okay, so all this is good. We're doing windshield heaters can go off. So windshield heat is going to go off. That's good too. Ice protection switches are off. The main bus tie is going to go on. There goes the main bus tie. And that looks good. APU, we're going to go and do the APU. So come up here, hit the power switch, flash, 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 and start. There is our parking right where we said we wanted to be. This is unusual for me. Bleed air 1 and 2, we're going to leave those on. And shutdown is next. Okay, our Charlie 10 is right at the end over here. So Charlie 10 is the one over here. Q10 and Charlie 10 are actually listed as the same. And this is a really nice scenery. This whole area is really nicely modeled. So if you've never been to the Alaska Q400 terminal for all of their commuter stuff. And I believe we're coming up on Charlie 10 here. So let's see, we got APU is up and running. The generator is available, so that's good news. And we stopped rolling again, add a little bit of power. Come on, airplane. And you even see Charlie 10 is listed up there. The post is always in the middle of the way. Now, these numbers are different. So I believe that this is our stand right here. But the numbers are a little different. And it says, what does the paint say? The paint says Q8, so I missed it. Q8. Oh, is it supposed to be over there? Well, we're going to this one. There's no gate guidance going in, so if there's no gate guidance, no shame in coming out here. And stop. There we go. Parking brakes are going to go on. Parking brakes are on. Props go all the way down there, so taxi light can go off. And the taxi light is off. Brakes are on. Standby hydraulic PTU is normal. Power levers are at disconnect. Condition levers start and feather. And those numbers have gone down, so we can come up here and fuel. APU should catch the generator there, so all that's good. Nose wheel steering, remember the nose wheel steering switch? That's going to go off. That's good. Radar is off. And we'll also turn up the seatbelt signs as the passengers just go to stand up anyway. And we'll turn off the red light. So that's good. We do have the position lights still on, so that's good too. And we can come down here. We're not on moving on VATSIM, so we're going to stop squawking. So we are done with our squawkage. And the rest of the checklist is bleed air, APU, generator, emergency lights. Let's disconnect the emergency lights, go off. And then at this point, we can come back over here to the weight and balance, and you can sit start unloading. And if you start unloading, you can come over here. The doors are going to open. If you lined yourself up, this should go and fit right there. So the passenger's going to get a little bit on the damp side as they come out. We can also connect a GPU. The back door is now opening too, so you can see the back door opens. Although some people that do ground crew on the Q400 say they rarely use the back door for passengers, I guess. I'm not sure. Okay, so this is good. We can trip in the APU now. So the ground power. So ground power and APU are both on. And I think we made it. The only last thing to do is go over here, hit the fuel system button, and come over here and look at how much fuel is. 1.1900 is the fuel. We were supposed to have 1492. So we actually came out on top of the fuel. So we actually won the fuel game. As far as our on-time arrival, it is 1600 Zulu. We were supposed to be here at... We're 20 minutes early. How about that? We're such great pilots. Thank you so much for flying along with me. I hope that some of this helped out just a little bit. Again, my videos here, not about the right way or the wrong way. It's just what's working for me. I'm new here on YouTube. Leave questions and comments in chat, please. I'm also now on Ko-fi, if you liked what you saw. Also, if you liked what you saw, come on and join us over on Twitch. We fly every day, Tuesday through Sunday at 1900 Zulu. This is the point where I always like to stay healthy, stay safe. I'll see you soon again here on YouTube and even sooner on Twitch. Cheers.